Hello!
Hello, spooky!
Ooh, happy Halloween, Sunny!
Happy Halloween! Wait, are you gonna dress up?
Happy... I'm dressing up. You know it. I am absolutely dressing up. What am I dressing up as? I have no idea, but I can tell you that my mom has a bag full of, like, costume and makeup and shit in her closet. And she was like, if you don't have a costume for this year, feel free to go into it and find something for yourself. And that's what I'm gonna do.
Damn.
Probably, blonde clown.
Is that how you
Just
got the
blonde
legendary
clown.
pirate costume years back? You just reached in and pulled that out?
Actually, yeah, that's how I got it. That's also how I got a costume that I wore 2 years ago, which was just pale clown. So really into clowns. This time I'll be blonde though. No one steal my idea, please.
You're
That's
basically
an original
dressing
one.
up as a bimbo.
Absolutely. Well, you know, you I don't even know if I want to make that joke. But you dress as what you are in the inside, you know? And all I can say is, being as blonde and as skinny as I am, it's only fitting for me to express that on the outside as well. So, happy Halloween, everyone. It is the 29th as we are recording this, but you know, Halloween is kind of from the 25th through November 2nd. Anyway, for me, it's kind of a whole week affair. So,
Agreed.
So I'm all good. I'm already in this spook feeling. Been so for what, 4 days now. So I'm Gucci. How are you, Sunny?
I am also very much in the spook feeling and Gucci, and I'm going to be dressing up as Velma. I bought an orange turtleneck. Yeah.
Oh my god, you fucking nerd! I can totally see that. But is it gonna be like slutty Velma, like Velma when she drops her glasses on the floor and she's like, you know, like she like pops her butts out, like as she's like searching for them on the floor, she like pops that boot and she's like, oh, where are my glasses? Oh.
I'm gonna try. Well, we'll see. I got a skirt and turtleneck. The turtleneck is cropped, and the skirt is like well fitted. So I would say not slutty,
okay.
but not unappealing. You know, Velma on a very good, well fitted day.
Well, Velma can't ever be unappealing, even if she's trying to, you know, cover up completely. She's just,
True.
That brain.
It's true. She's got
attractive.
the internal bimbo allure. I'm running the same
Oh,
show
you
myself.
know it. You know it. Granted, my favorite character is still Daphne because, you know, bimbo vibes, but
Completely.
I definitely stan Velma. Also, just because Sarah Michelle Gellar played her in Scooby-Doo. That's also why I like Daphne more, because I'm a Sarah Michelle Gellar bitch. But, hi all, welcome to episode 83. Halloween Campfire. We are reading some spooky stories for you today. Yeah, so let's just let's get this party started. I'm sure there will be a number of segues and interruptions and side notes that we'll make throughout this episode. But right now, I just want to get us spooked. I want to get us in that feeling so we can carry that throughout the episode. So, Sunny, start us off with something spooky.
Oh, I'm so ready. I'll start us off with my longer story, which I read, and it left me, like, shaky by the end. And I read through a lot of stories before choosing this one, yeah. So I'm excited.
I'm recording in a dark room, so you already have a foot in the door for us. Like, just spook me.
Ooh, okay, yes. If you haven't already, listeners, turn the lights down low.
Yeah, turn off the lights, and also Turn Out the Lights, the album by Kim Petras. Go stream it on Apple Music.
Such a good album.
Yeah.
So get those lights low and get ready to go. Okay. So the title is This is on Reddit No Sleep. I killed my best friend when I was 11, and I've regretted it every Halloween since.
Ugh, relatable.
How am I supposed to get spooked?
And that's how you know you're not my best friend. So, man, two birds with one stone.
Wow. Doubly hurt. So I was 11 when I killed my best friend. That's just me, Sunny, by the way. That's just me sharing that before I start the story.
Wait, what's your Reddit username? Like, bitch for Velma? Witching?
Oh yeah, the Reddit username, that's a good point, is Janie Be Good. So,
okay.
I was 11 when I killed my best friend. It wasn't on purpose, of course, and I felt bad for a long time. I still do, particularly around this time of year. I've taken to becoming effectively the world's most functional alcoholic during the entire month of October. I drown my autumnal anxieties in cheap vodka that burns its way down my throat. You could probably call it a tradition now. Melanie Graham was a bright, happy kid. She'd skipped at least one grade and was at the very top of the class. She'd been accepted into every private high school she'd applied to, and a couple of them gave her a scholarship. No idea why a kid like that would want to hang around a kid like me. I was failing at least one of my classes every semester and had visited detention enough times that I had a favorite desk. She always tutored me to at least above passing and waited until detention was over to walk home with me. Mel and I both loved the fall. It was a welcome break from the sweltering southern summer. On October 1st, we had a tradition where we'd decorate a tree house her dad built for us a few yards into the woods behind their house, using old decorations our neighbors didn't want anymore. I'm sure it looked like the Halloween section in the hardware store threw up on a tree, but we couldn't think of any place more beautiful to spend our evenings and weekends. And it was every evening and weekend. It got to a point where my worrywart of a mom even stopped calling Mel's house to remind me to be home before the streetlights came on, which wasn't hard, as Mel had helped me plan out the most efficient path to and from her house. I biked to Mel's house a few blocks over in the morning, left my bike there, and then walked with Mel to school. She didn't have a bike and hated sitting on the handlebars, so it took a little longer than just riding over. But that was a compromise I readily made. In the evenings, I'd just keep an eye on the sunset. Eventually, I had the timing nailed down, so a couple of times I waltzed through my front door just as the streetlights started glowing. The Monday before Halloween, Mel was waiting at the end of her driveway for me. Her nose was red and stuffy. I knew she'd spent the night crying. "I can't come to school today," she said. "Why not? You sick?" I asked. "No, my Auntie Ginger, the one down in New Orleans, she, was all she got out before she broke down into sobs." I remembered Auntie Ginger. She was the weird aunt, the one that left every conversation with the other participant wondering how much acid she took in the 70s. That aunt. Mel was crazy about her, though. Mel loved her weird aunt, and had a little shelf dedicated to all the weird things she'd given Mel on her visits. "Is she dead?" I blurted. "No, but she's real sick," she said as she wiped her tears away. "We're flying down today to see her, so I won't be at school." "Well, how long will you be gone?" "Dad says probably a week. We'll come back on Sunday, though, even if Aunt Ginger doesn't. You know, he doesn't want me and the twins to miss too much school." The twins were her brothers, Michael and Martin. They were in kindergarten. "So you're going to miss Halloween?" I said. I tried to hide my hurt. Halloween that year was on a Saturday, which meant extra time to finish our costumes and staying up as late as we wanted. "I guess so. I'm sorry," she said. When I didn't respond, she said, "Can you get the assignments from Mrs. Key for me?" "Sure," I said, dejected, and left her without even saying goodbye. I've never handled disappointment well, and while I understood why she had to go, I didn't want to spend my favorite holiday alone, especially since we had spent weeks planning the day, down to the quarter hour. That week went by very, very slowly. I've never had to go to school alone before. We spent so much time together that when one of us got sick, the other caught it too, so we'd both stayed home from school. I had no one to eat with at lunch or hang out with at recess. Sure, there were other kids, but I felt on the periphery. I was lonely. The only class that I bothered to pay attention to was science. We were doing a chapter on butterflies all week. The teacher even brought in a bunch of dead ones that were pinned to a piece of styrofoam. On Friday, she pulled in the big box television that usually meant that the teacher was going to put on a movie and do something else. I always interpreted it as surprise nap time while Mel took notes, but I didn't have that this class. So I paid attention. The movie was pretty boring. The names of species kept tripping me up. I'm pretty sure I spelled most of them wrong. I did find something interesting, though. It was the idea of puddling. When butterflies need food, but for whatever reason it's hard to come by, they land in something moist and draw nutrients and water from it. It can be mud, or sitting pool water, or even blood. That blood thing stuck with me. The following class was art, and Mrs. Gardner didn't seem to appreciate my oil pastel picture. I had made a scene of a kaleidoscope of butterflies, drinking the blood of some poor slain creature, and I got detention in the last class of the day on a Friday. I was the only kid in detention that day, so I guess the teacher took pity on me and sent me home after only half the usual time. I gave her a quick thanks, packed up my stuff, and got out of that classroom as fast as I could. I'm sure if I'd been paying attention, I wouldn't have tripped over the pair of skinny legs that were sticking out in the middle of the hallway. I fell hard on my hands and knees. "I'm so sorry," Mel said, helping me up. "I wanted to surprise you." I immediately forgot any sadness or anger I felt towards her and hugged her as if she was going to fly away again. I hadn't realized that I actually missed her that much until I saw her. Lonely and bored, sure, but actually legitimately missing her? It was a new concept. We walked my bike home that day. It took the whole walk to catch Mel up on what had happened at school, who was going to the rich neighborhood for trick-or-treating, who was going out with who, and what two girls got mad at each other because they learned that they had gotten the same costume. Mel seemed distracted, which reminded me about why she'd gone in the first place. "Oh, did your aunt die?" she said. I was kind of astounded. Just a few days ago, Mel couldn't keep herself together enough to talk about it. "Yeah." "Are you okay?" I said. "Yep, here she is," she said, pulling out a large locket from under her shirt. "You mean she's in there?" I said, disgusted. "Well, her ashes are. They had her burned up." "Oh, okay, well, are you still up for tomorrow?" I said, hoping to change the subject to anything but dead ants stuffed into jewelry. Having never seen a dead body before, the idea freaked me out a ton. "Sure, but do you think we could do something special?" she said. She explained that she couldn't actually explain it. It was more of a see it to believe it type of thing. But she had a pretty meticulous plan laid out. We wrap up our trick-or-treating by 7 o'clock, head over to my house for a sleepover, then sneak out by 11:45 and bike over to the treehouse just in time for midnight. After I had agreed, Mel went home instead of hanging out. She said she needed to prepare for tomorrow. I remembered that my mom had said that people grieve in a lot of different ways, and not to be upset if Mel was acting weird for a while. So I let it go and told her goodnight. That Halloween day was almost perfect. The weather was a decent 76 degrees, and every plan we had made seemed to fall right into place. My mom took a picture of us in our costumes. Mel looked like a lady we had seen selling tarot readings in New Orleans when our families vacationed there a few summers ago, and I was the bride of Frankenstein. I remember being so proud that I got hair to stand up that tall. In the end, only a few people got to see our costumes because it looked like everyone had decided to go to the rich neighborhoods for trick-or-treating. Initially, we were a little disappointed when we saw the desolate streets, but neighbors were a little more generous with the candy since everyone was on the Atkins diet and no one wanted all that sugar in their house. We got to my house exactly on time and did our best to get all the hairspray out and grease paint off. By 8 o'clock, we were in PJs with a bowl of popcorn, watching our favorite horror movie in the living room. It was perfect, and I felt so warm inside. My parents had been asleep for a while by the time 11:45 rolled around, so sneaking out wasn't an issue. Mel made sure to leave a chair outside of my window so we could get back in quickly if we got caught, and then hopped on my handlebars so we could get to our house as fast as we could. 7 minutes later, I parked the bike in an inconspicuous hiding place, and Mel practically sprinted in through her backyard and into the trees. I followed her as fast as I could, but by the time I reached the top of the ladder, Mel was already settled into her spot. She was bouncing with excitement. There seemed to be a million candles, and Melanie had lit all of them, so the treehouse was bathed in a warm orange glow. The windows and floors were covered in some sort of light, colored material, and she had painted weird symbols on all the walls. There was a big circle around a sitting area made out of salt. I was really impressed. Then I saw the Ouija board in the middle of the room, surrounded by the little gifts her aunt had given her. My stomach dropped. I knew that Ouija boards were just a silly game, and ghosts weren't real. I'd stopped getting scared of the monster under my bed years ago. But seeing everything Mel had set up and her overall anticipation about what she was planning made me very, very nervous. "Mel, what is this?" "We're going to contact my Aunt Ginger," she announced dramatically. I told her that some older kids around school were talking about the Ouija boards when she was away. They were saying they tried to contact John F. Kennedy and Marie Antoinette, but the planchette never moved for them. "But they didn't have Auntie Ginger's ritual," she said, as she pulled a piece of brown, weathered paper from out of her pocket. She handed it to me, and as I looked over the scrawled, handwritten notes, she said, "She left it for me in an envelope at her house. I think she wants me to talk to her in the afterlife." The ritual required specific foreign words to be chanted, a specific number of times, with a specific set of items that Mel already had. I didn't doubt Ginger had planned this as a last hurrah for her niece. "Okay then, what first?" I asked. Mel pulled a giant knife from behind her back. "What are you doing?" I shouted, and I guess my subconscious kicked in because I found myself lowering my arms from a protective position with a giggling Mel in front of me. "The first ingredient is virgin blood. It says it right here." She used the knife to point at the paper.
Pause. Like, the way that this friend is just, like, going along with this so easily, like, girl, have some resistance. Like, she's just stabbing you and being like, "I need some virgin blood," and you're like, oh my god, this is awkward. Like, keep going.
Well, if you don't believe in the supernatural, it's not as scary, you know? She's like, okay.
I mean, I guess, but you're still... Fine.
And then this is the next line. "I figured that 2 virgins are better than 1.
She said, "Girl, speak for yourself."
I gave her my hand reluctantly. She used the knife to slice a small cut into my finger and then her own. She let a couple drops of her blood drip into an ornate gold bowl. I followed suit. Mel continued with the other steps listed on the paper. She asked me to chant a phrase in Latin while she used each one of her gifts from her aunt as they were needed. A small bird skull was crushed and added to the bowl of blood. A ribbon was tied to each of our wrists, and a black stubby candle was lit and placed in the center of the bowl. She had a few amulets and crystals that she made gestures with, and wrapped a small, dead butterfly in a piece of red fabric. I remember thinking that none of these items were very hard to come by. You just had to wave them around and say some funny words and tell your best friend that you were doing dark magic. Then I thought that Mel was probably playing a prank on me. No way was any of this going to work, but she just wanted to scare me on Halloween night. I was angry, and every moment she continued on with this, I was getting angrier. I didn't know what else to do, so I just stopped chanting. "What are you doing?" Mel said. "This prank isn't very nice, Mel," I said, untying the ribbons from my wrists. "No, it's not a prank, I swear," she screamed at me, but I'd had enough. "I'm going home. I don't want to do this anymore." I stood up. "Please, Corinne, please don't. Let me finish first. Don't," she pleaded, but it was too late. I wish I had listened to her. I wish I had just sat back down and let her do whatever she wanted to do, even if it had been a dumb prank. But I didn't. I went to step out of the circle, but my foot disturbed the salt and separated the line. Mel screamed. I looked back at her and saw that she had her head and arms thrown back, mouth wide open. Her muscles strained, and I could see the blue veins crawling up her throat. The planchette on the Ouija board moved. Mel spoke as it pointed to each letter. "Hello," she said. The voice that came from her mouth did not belong to her. It sounded like gravel, like deep, deep darkness. Are you okay?" I stammered. The voice laughed, and Mel brought her head down to look at me. In just those few moments, Mel didn't look like Mel anymore. Her eyes were bloodshot, her sunken cheeks made her look gaunt, and her lips were cracked and bleeding. She smiled at me. "I'm fine," the voice cooed. "Please, won't you sit with me?" "No, I don't like this game, Mel. Please stop. You're really, really scaring me." "She's not here," it mocked. "Don't you know that, stupid girl?" The treehouse erupted in loud bangs. They seemed to be coming from everywhere, like 100 people were banging their fists against the walls. I covered my ears and cowered. Then it stopped. The thing wearing Mel's body laughed at me as it twitched and spasmed. "Where is she?" was the only thing I could think to say. I understood this wasn't a prank anymore. It opened its mouth and a scream, the scream of a terrified 11-year-old girl, escaped. The planchette shot around the board, spelling out HELPME over and over and over again. "Help me, help 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 me," the thing said, and barked out a laugh. I ran to the trap door and pulled it open, only to have it wrenched out of my grasp by some unseen force. It was pulled too hard and so suddenly that I didn't have the time to let go, and I fell face first at a windowsill, the corner cutting my forehead open. I made myself get to my feet and look at it. Warm blood was running down the side of my face, but I was too scared to turn my back to it. It never blinked, but it twisted Mel's face into an awful smile. "You provided me with a body and the gift of a soul." Its breath was heavy. "I want to thank you properly." It gestured to the spot where I had inadvertently broken the salt circle. "Please, come back inside," it said. The planchette flew to the no on the Ouija board, but the thing didn't notice or didn't care. Its glassy black eyes were trained on me. "No, I don't want to. I want you to bring Mel back," I demanded, "or I'll leave." "You wouldn't leave such a sweet, tender soul alone with me, would you?" The planchette spelled out LEAVE. The trapdoor flew open. The resounding bang made me jump, but I turned on my heel and started towards it. "I'll hurt her, or I'll eat her. The innocent ones are always so tender. I could even ruin her soul. Make it dark, make it spiteful and gutless. Like you. It should have been you, you know." That phrase, "should have been you," struck me and I stopped. It was right. I should be the one whose soul was lost, not Mel's. "It should have been you," came the soft, sweet voice of Mel from behind me. I turned and saw her. No pale, sunken skin or black eyes on her hands and knees. She looked so sad and helpless. I'd never seen her like that before. It broke my heart. "Please, I can't go back. It should have been you." She held her hand out to me. "Come into the circle. Save me." I couldn't let her go back. I needed to help my best friend. I put my hand out and cautiously reached for hers. Tears were welling in her eyes. But as soon as I got close, her face contorted into something monstrous. It lunged at me, and I was able to pull myself away only with a shallow scratch across the inside of my wrist. But it burned. It felt like the sun was trying to break through my skin, like I was being burned from the inside. The monster crawled towards me. It didn't look like Mel anymore. It was a pale pink humanoid figure. Its emaciated body should have been weak, but the muscles beneath its skin were lithe and strong. There was no competition between me and it. If it wanted me, it was going to take me no matter how hard I fought. I backed up, but there wasn't far to go in the small space, and my back quickly hit the wall. It stood and got very close, and I could feel the heat coming from inside its throat. It grabbed my face and used its sticky tongue to lick the blood on my face. It held my face near its mouth and opened it too wide to be natural. 1,000 pain screams came from inside. My hands searched around blindly for anything at all. The first thing I touched was a candle in a glass vase. I grabbed it and smashed it against the monster's head and ducked away into the salt circle, quickly closing it. To my horror, it had reverted back to Mel's visage. My friend's head was split open, and I could see bone. Blood poured over half of her face. It roared at me. I looked down. The planchet on the board was moving so fast I could barely read it. Burn it down. It meant the treehouse. The monster kept going back and forth between the pale figure and Mel as it stalked around the salt circle. I realized that I wasn't the one bound by the circle. It was. I knew what I had to do, and I knew what it meant. The planchet moved to the word goodbye. I slowly placed a foot behind me, then another. The monster watched my feet, waiting for the moment I would step out. I kept going until I knew that I was close by the edge. I took a breath and dragged my foot, breaking the line of white that stood between me and death. It was so predictable. It moved towards me fast, but when it fully placed itself inside the circle, I pushed the salt back with my foot and closed it again. It was trapped. Mel was trapped, too. I grabbed the pieces of fabric Mel had used to decorate the place and set them on fire using the candles. The wood caught quickly, and I threw everything into it to fuel the fire. I refused to let myself look at the monster again when I climbed down the ladder. It had been calling to me using Mel's voice, and I knew it had taken on her pitiful form again. I didn't want to see my best friend among the flames. As I ran back through Mel's backyard into my bike, I could hear the creature's roar, and just under it, the sound of a little girl screaming. I got home and tended to my relatively shallow wounds and waited in my bed. I didn't sleep. The next morning, my mom cried as she told me that Mel had snuck out in the middle of the night. She said no one knows what happened, but the police seem to think she accidentally set a fire in the treehouse and then threw herself out of a window to save herself. She didn't survive the fall. I didn't cry, couldn't cry, I felt numb. Later that evening, I rode to Mel's house after the news vans and police had left. I ignored the caution tape and stood under the remains of the treehouse. Mel's body had been moved, but no one bothered to clean up the puddle of blood that remained. There were butterflies in it, taking what was left of Mel's life for themselves. I still couldn't help but think, it should have been me. As of this year, that was 20 years ago, and for 20 Halloweens, Mel has visited me, heralded by a kaleidoscope of butterflies. The first year, I thought I was losing my mind, and asked my parents to take me to a doctor. When the vision was gone the following day, they said it had only been a grief-fueled hallucination. The second year was the same, and then the third. By the fourth year, I had learned to just shut myself in my room all Halloween night and wait until it stopped. On the 7th year, Mel's mom killed both of the twins. One drowned and one strangled. Then she walked to the burned ruins of the treehouse and took a cocktail of rat poison, vodka, and a handful of pills. Mel's dad had a breakdown and has been in a long-term mental health facility. I think Mel visited her room too. Mel tells me to do things like that. She comes to me, all bloodshot eyes and pointy-toothed smirk, and tells me to end my life to exchange it with hers, that I should be the one burning with the man, not her. My brain knows it's not really her. It's the creature wearing her face, which seems to be slowly melting as the years go by. My heart, on the other hand, can't seem to let go of the guilt of leaving her to die in that treehouse. I've consulted several characters in an attempt to understand what happened that night. They vary in degrees of reliability, but they all have pretty much come to the same conclusion. Mel would never have been able to leave that treehouse alive. We were kids, and whatever entity that had come when Mel called upon another realm was particularly aggressive. Some said that the only reason I was able to get out was because it just wanted to toy with me until it could take me. This is its entertainment. There's a tapping on my window now. I don't want to look because I know what it is. I've locked myself in my office 16 floors up. There's only one thing that could possibly be out there. I know that eventually, either curiosity or some sort of twisted nostalgia will make me look over to her and she'll have her face pressed against the glass with that awful, evil smile stuck on her face. She'll whisper to me as butterflies ram themselves against the window and fall to the ground dead. I hope that I make it another 30 years, but I'll probably tire of this game faster than it does. No matter what happens, I know where I'll be when I die. I'll be with the creature that took my friend, burning from the inside out. End story.
It's all that bitch's fault, dude. Like, that's all I can say. What a dumb bitch.
I can't believe you.
That's the takeaway. Anyway, no. I mean, listen. Poor girls, both of them, you know, the one that was taken to the hellish realm and the one that has to live with this, because that's kind of a hell of its own. Also, sorry poor aunt for dying. And just to make it clear, this girl thought she was calling upon her aunt's spirit, but in reality she ended up summoning a demon, correct?
Mm-hmm. That's what it seems like.
Right, which is like,
unless it was her aunt,
trope.
Which would be a total twist.
That would be a hell of a twist. A hell of a twist. But if it is what I said, then that's like a total trope. But the reason it is such a trope, it's probably because it comes from somewhere, and like it's real. I think we've talked on this podcast a million bajillion times about why you don't want to play with things like Ouija boards or anything resembling it, or even engage in a seance, because you don't actually have control over what you're actually summoning. Like you can. I guess if you're working with a medium, maybe since they have some level of professionalism, maybe like you'll have a better outcome. But at the end of the day, like any just mortal human doesn't really have the capacity to actually summon something specifically. Like you can call upon something and hope that that's what comes, but I mean, shit. Like you know what I mean? Like you can't. That's all you can do. Like you can't actually control. You can't actually filter what comes through that portal that you just opened. You're kind of just like yelling into the wind, and so whatever comes. That's kind of the I think that's the beware like takeaway I want the audience to take away from this, in case that wasn't clear. But as far as the story, it is good. It is well written. I liked it. I feel bad for the girls. Mel, I don't know. I have comments. I'll keep them to myself. Yeah. So thank you.
No, for sure. You should go comfort Corinne, the main character, by being like, I don't care if Mel skipped 8 grades. That was a dumb hoe move and she deserved it. And then I'm sure she won't feel guilty anymore.
Yeah, no, that makes sense. Yeah, I think I should do that. Thank you for that. That was very, I was very engaged. I was like kind of like lost and like looking outside my window, like thinking like I was in a movie. So I have a story for you. This is shorter, so I might go and read you 2 stories. But this one's called Halloween 1992. Great year. What was happening back then? My sister was born.
Johnny Depp was really hot. Johnny Depp and Winona Ryder were reaching like peak hotness at that time.
If you ask one of my gay friends, Johnny Depp is still hot, which I wholeheartedly disagree. But he clearly has a thing for, I don't know, like melting daddies, and so he thinks Johnny Depp is still hot. Melting as in his face is melting, by the way, in case it wasn't clear that I was being mean. So Halloween 1992. This is from No Sleep as well, which is kind of the only barrel we will ever grab stories from. And it's by user Helvira, which I love. Get it? Like Elvira. By the way, I'm a complete Elvira, Mistress of the Dark. Is that her actual, like, I think that's what it's called. I'm a complete Elvira stan. You know who Elvira is, right?
I've seen her, but I don't know where she comes from.
She's like some I mean, she created this character, the actress that plays her, called Elvira, and she's been in she was like in movies in the 80s and 90s, I think. And she had a show where she would like introduce horror films. It was some like major like channel, like one of the major ones.
Interesting. Like the Cher show, except for introducing scary movies.
No, not like this. I mean, yeah, I guess like the scary movies were were the focal point of the broadcast, but she would be like introducing them every time one of them would start. I don't know. It's like I think she's like a Halloween-esque like pop culture character, and I really like her. She's actually in a Kim Petras song, mind you.
Ooh.
Yeah, Turn Off the Light. Look it up. So she actually used to perform at, I think it was Six Flags, not Knott's Berry Farm. I think it was Six Flags every year for a while. She would do this performance, and it was really cool. Whatever. I saw like a video of it, and I got a Six Flags season pass like some years ago, and by the time I got it, she was no longer doing it. And I didn't find out that she had been doing this show for years until like recently. And so I'm like, shit, like that sucks. Yeah, she's like, like the tall, pale lady with the big 80s hair and the huge boobs and the black dress. Yeah, she, like part of her show would be she would put this what are those things called? Like these things on her nipples that like kind of like swing around, and she would like she would do a little dance with like her lasso nipple thingies. Oh man,
that's
iconic.
insane.
So,
yeah.
Halloween 1992. When I was 12 years old, I was gearing up for an awesome Halloween out with my friends. At that time, it was still relatively safe for kids to go combing neighborhoods in search of candy and treats without a lot of parental supervision. By the way, let's talk about that for a second. Fucking, like, remember when there was, like, racers and hard candy and shit?
Oh,
and, like,
yeah.
Like, that was, like, a news craze in the U.S. in, like, the early was it early 2000s? No, I feel like that's wrong. I feel like the first case of, like, a child being poisoned or hurt by candy was, some real case back in the 80s, I think, and that sent like the media into a frenzy. That case, mind you, the dad himself did it. The dad killed his son.
Oh.
yeah.
How sad.
And also tried to kill that little boy's friend. Like he told the police like, oh, I don't know, we were trick or treating and they went to a house and they got candy and I guess they ate that candy and they died. But they figured out it was the dad that poisoned them because he wanted the life insurance on the kids. So,
oh my god.
Anyway,
that makes me feel better though. Honestly, it's the people close to you you've got to worry about.
Yeah. I mean, yeah. So times have certainly changed now, but after this incident, I'm not sure I'd ever want my kids out alone at night, especially on Halloween. Cider Mill Road was long and scattered with a lot of houses. It was an area that was kind of known to be spooky, mainly because there was an old house at the end which had lots of swirling ghost stories. I had heard many childhood whispers and legends. It was an apple orchard years ago, and the slaves had been brutally murdered. The original owner had hung himself at the top of the staircase. There were so many stories, but all the town kids were enamored by the house. We would ride bikes by the house in hopes of catching a glimpse into its history. We were all certain it was filled with all sorts of paranormal delights. After trick-or-treating for several hours and almost reaching the end of Cider Mill Road, a friend suggested we go knock on the door of the house and see if anyone answered. We knew an old woman lived there by the last name of Murphy. No one ever saw her out much, but she had inherited the property and had lived there for probably 50 years. It was a big house, especially for one person. I always thought it had to be lonely to be unmarried, no children, and living in such a big, old, run-down house. My dad called it decayed gentry, although I had no idea what that meant. The driveway winded up through the orchard, which lay sprawling in front of the house. No one tended to the apples anymore, and so most of them lay rotting on the ground, which by October was more of a rotting stench than an apple fragrance. Hey, you go up and ring the bell, Jessica told me. I shrugged. I'm not going by myself. Take Olivia with you, she said. Olivia shook her head. I don't think so. It's getting late. I need to get home. Ugh, what a bitch. Jessica grabbed our hands. We'll all go together. It smells bad, Olivia said. I don't want to go up there. I agreed. Yeah, the apples stink. If an old woman lives here, she might already be in bed. She probably doesn't want trick-or-treaters. She doesn't even have a front porch light on, Olivia said. Universal sign for leave me alone. You guys are such chickens. Come on, it's Halloween. Let's just do this, and then we can go to school on Monday and tell everyone what happened, and we'll be the coolest kids in class. Much to my dismay, we were being led further up the dark gravel driveway to the dilapidated mansion at the top of the hill. Olivia had some neon glow stick bracelets, which was the only light we were able to see with because it was pitch black, and we didn't have flashlights. It had been a fairly cloudy night, although it was almost a full moon. We'd only had glimpses of moonlight the entire night. None of us thought ahead to bring any light sources. When we reached the top of the hill where the house was positioned, I got a cold chill. I was shaking. I don't know if it was the temperature outside or the fact that I was frightened, but my teeth were slightly chattering. The three of us approached the house and climbed up onto the porch. Jessica pushed me forward. "Ring the doorbell, bitch," she was whispering. Oh, whispering. "Ring the doorbell, bitch." "I don't want to ring the bell," I said. She pushed me again. "Just do it." I stepped forward. My eyes had begun to adjust to the darkness, and I could see the door in front of me with elaborate stained glass. Although my hand was shaking, I reached for the bell and I pressed it. Immediately, Jessica and Olivia start giggling and screaming. They take off running, leaving me standing on the porch. I heard a noise from inside the house. I darted off the porch. I tripped over my witch's dress and fell face first on the grass. My pumpkin-shaped bucket filled with candy spilled onto the ground, but I was too scared to bother with it. I threw the bucket down, trying to see my way to the drive, but it was dark. I could hear the girls giggling in the distance somewhere ahead of me. "Those bitches," I mumbled under my breath. My feet hit the gravel on the road. My heart was pounding. Why was I so scared? I was on the road now and away from the house. I was in a safe place. The old woman was probably in bed. She hadn't even opened the front door. I told myself not to be afraid and that I was fine now. We were just being dumb kids. I had slowed down from a sprint. I was breathing heavily, but slowed down to a walk. Now I could make out headlights down Cedar Mill, so I knew I was not far from the road. Those girls would be waiting down there at the end for me. I'd give them a piece of my mind. "Shit," I said in a low voice. "Stupid girls." When all of a sudden, out of nowhere, two hands were grabbing at my chest from behind. Something was pulling me. I let out a scream. Something had me. I could hear it snarling and hissing as it pulled me. I tried fighting it off. It was dragging me over to the side of the driveway. I could see the outline of an apple tree in the moonlight. I could smell that rotting stench. I was only 12, but I was fighting as hard as I could. I was screaming and yelling, "Help me!" I tried hitting the arms off of me. I was as combative as I possibly could be, feeling like I was fighting for my life. Whoever had me was not letting go. I felt sharp nails sticking into my chest while it was pulling me toward the apple trees. "Who are you? Let me go!" The clouds must have moved away from the moon, because for a moment again the moonlight was shining down, illuminating the orchard around me. That's when I caught a glimpse. What had its arms around me was an old hag. A woman, but she was old and looked half dead. She had flesh that looked like it was also rotting away from her face. So Cher in the morning, basically. She was still gurgling and snarling. I managed to twist myself loose, and the second I did, I felt her sharp nails on my back, but I took off running. I ran through the orchard, dodging trees. I felt the disintegrating apples squishing and oozing under my feet. At one point, I slipped and fell into a pile of mush. I finally made my way to the gravel and did not stop until I was at the main road. Of course, my asshole friends were posted up waiting for me, but the minute they saw me bolting by, they did not laugh. I was in shock. Somehow, we managed to get to a neighbor's house where the person called my parents to come pick me up. My friends explained what had happened and how they had left me at the house. I had scratch marks on both my chest and back from the incident. My parents decided we needed to call the police and make a report. The cops thought it was probably just a Halloween prank, probably some teenagers trying to scare me. We ended up getting a huge lecture from the cop and our parents. The next day was a Sunday. I was still really terrified about what had happened and was adamant it was not just some teenage kids messing with us. I kept telling my parents over and over that it was something else. My mom finally told me it was enough and over with, and we didn't need to rehash it again. Very supportive parents. By early evening, I had settled into being a bit calmer about the whole thing when the phone rang. My dad answered, and after a few minutes of, "Yes, I see, and I understand," he came into the den where I was piled up watching television. My mom was sitting in her chair reading a book. She looked up at my dad, who was kind of pale. "What is it, George?" she asked. He looked at us both with astonishment and said, "That was a weird voice. It said, 'You have 7 days.'" Just kidding. That was Deputy Richardson from last night. He went over to do a welfare check on Mrs. Murphy after they couldn't reach her last night for questioning. It turns out Mrs. Murphy was dead inside her house the whole time. Apparently, the coroner says he estimates roughly that she probably died back in August. No wonder that bitch was so smelly. He says they still have no signs of anyone else being at the house last night. The house had not been broken into or anything. The only thing they found outside was your bucket of candy, which was all over the ground just like you said. Honey, Didn't you say it was an old woman who grabbed you? Mom asked, horrified. The end.
Hmm.
You know, if you really think about it, this is more a sad story than anything else. I think she just wanted someone to know she passed away.
Aw. That's definitely, yeah.
Or she wanted to eat children.
Two possible things here.
Yeah. Or maybe she was both. I mean, maybe it's the first. She wanted people to know she was dead. But she was also angry because, like, she was resentful that no one had noticed. And so that's why she scratched the kid. She was so aggressive, you know?
That makes sense.
Yeah, thoughts?
I'm glad the kid got away. Definitely spooky ending. You know, old women do not be out here staying down.
Tell me about it. She really said, no, I am gonna leave. No.
She really said, what is it? Ding dong ditch me one more time, bitch.
I will be heard. Oh my god. Okay, so let me follow this up with another number themed story. This is very different, and also I never kind of read a story like, I mean, I did back when the creepypastas were a thing back in like 2012, and like gaming creepypastas were like popular, but I never like read definitely not like a Halloween themed one or anything. This is interesting. So it's called Halloween 64, and I don't play video games, but I love gaming creepy stories because I don't know, there's just something about like the thing that you're watching on your television is actually like trying to interact with you in the real world.
Oh, totally.
And like spook you or eat you or
Yeah.
kill you or fuck you. Yeah. So that last one, oh man, there are stories. No. So Halloween 64. This is also from No Sleep by a username I cannot read. So I had heard rumors of the game's existence on various gaming sites and message boards, but I never guessed it to be real. I spent a little over a year trying to track down a copy, but came up empty-handed. That was until a few weeks ago when the game decided to find me. I'm here to beg you, do not go looking for it, Sonny. If an unfamiliar game shows up at your door, leave it be. It can disguise itself under any platform and does not abide by the rules of our universe. If you are unfortunate or stupid enough to play it, I will provide instructions below to hopefully give you a fighting chance.
Dude, is this describing League of Legends right now? Because it's too late
it's
for
League
me.
of Legends. It's League of Legends. The game decided to present itself to me on a Sunday at midnight. It had manifested itself into a blank Nintendo 64 cartridge with no writing or sticker logo and was placed outside my front door with no note or instruction. I paced around for 20 minutes and tried to comprehend where it had come from and who had delivered it. Eventually, I hooked up my console and inserted the cartridge. My version of the game had titled itself Halloween 64 and even included an inverted Nintendo logo. It also displayed a few fake development companies like Uology Inc. and Last Breath Software. Foreshadowing much? Eulogy Inc. and Last Breath Software. The main title screen showed the words Halloween 64, press start, in text made to look like running green slime. Honestly, I want to play this game. I love like late 90s gaming graphics. Like they're so nostalgic to me. Probably because I had a 64 myself. I love playing the Donkey Kong racing game. Sue me. Okay, so as soon as the game begins, you will be unable to quit until it is complete. I am sure you're thinking, just turn it off, unplug it, or walk away. If it only were that easy. The game has several methods of self-defense, and the harder you try and disrupt it, the stronger it becomes. The power function of the N64 console will not respond if you try and turn it off. The red power light remains on, and the system operates like normal. The cartridge cannot be removed. It does not matter how hard you pull. It will stay locked in place. It just sounds like my old console, but okay. If you annoy it enough, the cartridge will become scalding hot and will burn your skin to the bone. Also my old console. All outside communication will be lost. Your phone and internet will not function while the game is running. Any door or window that leads to the outside world will be inaccessible. My front door would not open, and all of my windows became shatterproof. God, calm the fuck down. What is this? Like, man.
Yeah.
You need to play. Okay, so to be honest, I'm not sure if time even passes while playing the game, as every clock in my apartment remained at 12 midnight while playing. You are given 10 lives. Certain aspects in the game will be mirrored in reality. Any pets you own will die as soon as you lose a life. What the fuck did Fido do to deserve that? As you lose more lives, you will get sick, very sick. I became nauseous, my head started to pound, and my nose began to bleed. The more lives you lose, the worse you will feel. But you must keep playing. I can only conclude that losing all lives will result in your actual death. Level 1, the neighborhood. The character of level 1 is a child dressed in a skeleton costume, carrying a jack-o'-lantern bucket, the exact costume I wore when I was 6 years old for Halloween. Your character starts in the middle of a suburban neighborhood that is covered with cheap Halloween decor. The street had a striking resemblance to the one I grew up on, which I'm guessing is a detail that changes with each player. The only ability you have is movement. You cannot jump, punch, or use items in this level. Although the street appears linear and endless, as though it is an infinite loop, it is not. As you move forward, the street lights behind you will go out. Do not go into the dark. Keep moving. If you move your character into the dark, you will lose a life. As you play, you will notice the darkness creeping behind you in reality. After a few hours of running down the virtual street, all the lights in my apartment went out one by one. Whatever you hear, see, or feel, it is very important to not take your eyes off the screen during this level. You will hear doors in your home open and close, footsteps, and even a familiar voice whisper in your ear. Where are the Cheetos? Do not lose concentration, or you will lose more lives. You may even feel a hand rest on your shoulder. When the game gets bored of level 1, it will end without notice. The timer on the screen showed that I ran for 7 hours and 26 minutes before it ended. Okay, thoughts so far?
Interesting. I like rule-based stories. It's very interesting. It's like all you have to do is follow these simple rules, but somehow it creeps you out so much because it's like a head resting on your shoulder. Whose head? How does the game know all this stuff about you? You know? Yeah, I really like it, and I agree that game stories are so interesting because I think virtual stuff feels similar to supernatural. Virtual stuff shouldn't affect real life, right? It should just be contained within your device. So when it's not, it's super spooky.
Yeah, kind of like how we think the paranormal doesn't exist and therefore shouldn't affect us in our realm.
Exactly,
and then when it does, our feeling of safety is shattered, and that's why things are scary.
Yeah.
Okay, level 2, the house. Level 2 is displayed in first person. You will enter a house with limited visibility, as a dim flashlight is your only source of illumination. As you progress through this level, you will notice a climate change around you in reality. My apartment was freezing, making it extremely difficult to concentrate. Again, you must keep playing. If you get up and try to adjust your thermostat or get a coat, you will lose a life. I lost 4 lives during this level, and started coughing up blood. As you move through the house, you will discover various weapons. When you recover all of the weapons, you can progress to level 3. These weapons cannot be used in self-defense. It is best to not equip them, as your character will only use them to commit suicide, thus resulting in the loss of more lives. As you move through the dark house, you will hear and see things that will test your limits as a human being. I will not go into detail, but I saw and heard things on that screen that were deeply personal, disturbing, and worst of all, genuine. I'm sorry for this man. Be prepared to witness every terrible experience of your past. All of those things you have repressed, forgotten, and maybe even went to therapy to try to work through. Oh my god, my dad's gonna be there? Once again, you must keep playing, and you must collect each weapon.
Oh my god, my dad's not gonna be there?
Oh my god, relatable. Okay, level 3, final. I enter this level with 2 remaining lives, almost certain that I was destined to fail. Like the former levels, I believe that it is custom tailored to the person who is playing. Again, this level remains in first-person view. You will enter a bedroom and see a person lying on a bed, asleep. They may resemble a loved one, a friend, or yourself. I saw the body of my best friend who passed away 10 years ago. After I put her in a fucking Ouija circle, we summoned her weird aunt. She got possessed. No, I'm kidding. I saw the body of my best friend who passed away 10 years ago. You will have access to every weapon you grabbed in level 2. A knife, blowtorch, baseball hat, and screwdriver. Your objective is simple. Kill the person in the bed. They will not fight back or move. Once their health bar is diminished, you will win the game. I chose the knife. I walked up to the bed, aimed, and struck the body with the blade. White, hot pain filled my eyes, and I instantly discovered the catch of level 3. Whatever pain you inflict on the person, you will feel in reality. You will not lose any blood, you will not lose any consciousness, and you will not die, but you will feel every single sensation. If you take too long in between blows, your player will lose a life. The person on the bed will beg you to stop, They will scream your name again and again. It took me 20 minutes to stab them to death, and I could barely hold the controller when it was over. I completed it with one life remaining. My physical body was cold, frail, and broken. I remember reading "Game Complete" on the screen just before blacking out. I am not sure who the game will choose next, or if it already has. I just pray that they will read this before it is too late.
Dun dun dun. Damn. Well, thanks for the tutorial.
Right? I know. It's crazy because, like, it just appears to you. Like, you don't have to look for it. I mean, this guy says that he looked for it at the beginning and then it appeared to him, so maybe he brought this onto himself by looking for the game on eBay or whatever. But it seems like the game kind of just shows up. Your real only defense for this to not happen to you is for you to ignore it.
Or to not own a gaming console. I'm immune!
True. It didn't say it came with a 64, so this guy must have owned one. And the game knew to disguise itself as that. True.
That is a good one,
that's
though.
My story.
That's spooky as hell. Oh my gosh. Yeah, I should... Yeah.
It reminded me a little bit of Ben is Drowning or Ben Drowned. Like an old creepypasta about Zelda. I don't know if you ever heard of it. It's good. Anyway, what were you going to say?
I just liked it. I mentioned this, but rule stories are really interesting. There's something about it. It actually reminds me of, do you know that story that's supposed to be in the Bible about the Lot's wife who turns into a pillar of salt with Sodom and Gomorrah?
Yeah.
Yeah, it's just very interesting, this idea of, like, you can run and you'll make it away from the city. The only rule is that you can't look back. And Lot's wife looks back and she turns into a pillar of salt. I don't know, this interesting idea of, like, the paranormal world having all these arbitrary rules that we need to keep in line with. There's something that's very satisfying about it.
And they sound like they're just designed to fuck with you. Like, they don't sound like they're actually important rules that the paranormal beings need to follow. They're just doing it to toy with you.
Exactly. Yeah. Feels so small.
Ugh.
I have a good one, and it's nonfiction. So.
Ooh, okay, go ahead.
I really like this one. So, Greenwich, Connecticut isn't a place you'd expect to find a body. It's one of the wealthiest burbs in the States. The place where Bush Sr. played as a boy and where a solid dozen U.S. senators are currently raising their own kids. But in 1975, amid the sprawling estates, multi-million-dollar mansions, and manicured lawns, the blood-soaked body of 15-year-old Martha Moxley was found on a cold Halloween morning. The discovery shocked the town. Martha had been beaten with a golf club so hard that the club had shattered. Again, clubs are made of metal. The club had shattered. And then she'd been stabbed in the neck with one of the jagged pieces of the shattered club. Then her killer had dragged her 24 meters, that's 80 feet, and dropped her off in her own backyard. All eyes soon turned to 17-year-old Tommy Skakel, the nephew of Senator Robert F. Kennedy. According to reports, Martha had been out with her friends the night before that morning, and they had all gone to a party at the Skakels' house. Tommy had left the party with Martha late at night, but she never made it home, even though their houses were only 450 feet away. Although the police had their suspect, they never made a conviction, and the gruesome Greenwich Halloween murder remained a cold case for over 16 years. In 1991, renewed investigations into the Moxley case brought it back into the public eye, but it wasn't until 1998, 23 years after the young girl's murder, that a killer was named: Michael Skakel, Tommy's brother. According to novelist Dominic Dunn, Michael had once climbed a tree outside Martha's window and masturbated. He was infatuated with the girl. And in 2002, Michael Skakel was finally convicted of murder by a grand jury. But the story doesn't end there. Michael Skakel, 11 years later, was granted an appeal, and in 2013, he was released from prison on bail. So this is Spooky Wealth Talk. Welcome. Where,
wow.
Yeah, where...
That is insane.
Exactly. You can get away with the murder of a 15-year-old girl as long as, Daddy Kennedy can pay for some lawyers. Got away with it for 23 years. That's insane. And the evidence is so clear. Like, she had been at their house. It was 450 feet away from her own house. And she turned up dead at her own house the next morning. And someone had walked her home. Tommy had literally walked her home.
She must have suicided.
So weird that she would then take the shattered piece from the club and stab herself with it. How creative.
That's kind of like a suicide I heard of once, where like they found this woman in a hotel room, and apparently she had shot herself in the head twice, and there was no blood on her hands, and she was holding the gun, like on top of her chest, just like very like, like almost like staged. Like she just calmly put her hand holding the gun on top of her chest after she shot herself in the head twice.
That's insane. Interesting.
I know. People were like, "Oh, it's suicide," and now, like years later, it's like a case in Unsolved Mysteries on Netflix. I can tell you which one if you're actually interested in watching it. But like years later, now people are like, "No, we're like looking into this again," because it definitely looks like foul play. But yeah, it's crazy. Like I feel like sometimes authorities are either lazy or butt out or
yeah, or you just get a really good attorney. It's actually crazy some of the stuff I've heard or seen people get away with a good attorney.
That's true. Yeah. Sometimes it is the attorney.
Our criminal justice system is corrupted.
Now, before we end the episode, I just wanted to, dude, like, okay, listen. I want to go trick-or-treating. I know I am 40, but...
You know what? I'm 43 and I'm still going, so...
Listen, I'm small, okay? You can't tell.
You're a skinny blonde bimbo.
So, I am. So listen, I am so skinny, like, and so blonde. You honestly think I'm 15? So
15 and ready to be murdered with a golf club.
15 going on osteoporosis. No, I think I can fool the candy givers. I think I'm gonna dress up. I think I'm gonna go out there. I'm not gonna settle for just handing candy out to greedy fucking gross ass kids. I want my own candy. I want to be the greedy gross ass kid. I'm gonna go out there with my costume and my blonde beautiful hair, my skinniness, and go get myself some Skittles.
I mean, I think that you should, but it's COVID. I don't even think people can trick or treat if they are of age right now.
Which is also something else I wanted to talk about. Like, I have heard that in some places things are still happening, which, like, I mean, I guess I can totally see how that's possible. Because, like, you can stay 6 feet apart pretty easily if you're just walking down the street with, like, your family members. As long as it's, like, not people outside of your household, I would think it should be fine. And I know that if I were to do it, it would be with my family. So, and I guess maybe, like, the candy givers will now just like leave the candy outside and that's it, like they won't be
contactless
there,
pickup.
Yeah, contactless trick-or-treating. But then these people run the risk of like greedy kids, aka me, like taking the whole bucket and just like pouring it into their bags,
Oh, fair. I still remember one time when I went trick-or-treating as a kid, one specific year. I went trick-or-treating and I stopped at a store, some like little corner store or something. And they're like, no other kid has stopped by our store, but we bought so much candy. And I had a pillowcase and they literally like half filled my pillowcase.
Wow.
Yeah, this is such a tangent, but I still remember that year because it was such a haul and we had candy, I think the whole year until the next Halloween, like sitting in a bowl in the kitchen.
Dude, that's crazy. You got lucky.
Yeah.
What's your favorite candy, by the way?
Ooh, honestly, just a good old Hershey's milk chocolate really hits, or I love Baby Bottle Pop's watermelon flavor. Yeah.
Oh my god, dude, I remember Baby Bottle Pops, not because I've ever had one, but because I used to watch the Jonas Brothers commercial when I was little. Baby Bottle Pop, you can suck it and lick it and fuck it, or whatever it was, but like, that's the tune.
You're so... I don't even remember
so
that, but that probably affected me a lot. I get them occasionally, I won't lie.
My favorite candy is Sweet Tarts.
Ooh,
dude,
no way!
Not that, like, Sweet Tart ropes, gross, but Sweet Tarts. I love hard, dry candy. There's just something about...
I love hard, dry candy too. That's awesome. Wow.
Really? Yay. Yeah, Sweet Tarts, dude. Love them. Put them in my mouth, put them in my ass, put them anywhere you want. They're just great.
Cool fave.
On that note... She really said, Thank you all for listening. We hope you're having a very spooky Halloween night, and that we made it any better. I really hope we're making your Halloween night better. If it isn't great already, thank you so much for listening. And remember that you can send us episode ideas if you have any like requests you'd like us to cover by DMing us at Talk Scary on Instagram and Twitter, and at Scary Talk on Facebook. Remember also that you can listen to this podcast on any and all podcast listening platforms, which you already know because you're listening to the podcast right now. Just realized me saying that for 83 episodes is kind of redundant, so I'm gonna stop now. Sunny, anything else?
Happy Halloween, y'all. I hope that you're chilling and eating some good food or candy.
Same. Dude, one time I saw a picture. I came across a picture on Google of a man fucking a pumpkin. Good night,
Good night.
everyone.